October the 28th in the year of our Lord 2022, live inside the Beltway. And I am back. 100% of my voice is back. I can't tell you what a blessing that is for a talk show host who kind of stumbles through a week of laryngitis every other year or so. And you just do what you can, and there are lots of remedies, but eventually you just feel great. And it happens to coincide with day one of year one. Day one of year one is today. I think we should start the calendar over. Elon Musk has bought Twitter. Now, let freedom ring, let 1,000 flowers bloom, get rid of the bots and destroy anonymity, and it'll be a good site. I think it's absurd to call it a hellscape. Pay no attention to the bots, mute people who are vulgar, idiotic, and partisan hacks. Just don't block them. Just mute them. It's a wonderful site. I think you ought to involve yourself in it because it's a news site. It tells you what's happening immediately, and you can avoid the crazies. But day one, year one of the new Twitter regime, and Elon has fired everybody in the C-suite, which is good. That's appropriate. Not like a surprise to them. And now I hope he goes about abolishing bots and tossing out people. And if I were king of the forest, not queen, not duke, not earl, now I tweeted out yesterday, if Elon Musk wants your or my opinion about what to do about Twitter, a Starlink satellite will appear over our homes. And then a SpaceX shuttle will arrive to deliver us to the Starlink satellite, where Musk will be waiting in a white leather chair, right? That's what would happen. But if I were king of the forest, and if the Starlink shuttle comes and the message arrives from SpaceX that I got to get on board, I will tell him, require authenticated registration and anonymity. That's all we need. There are lots of fake people and a lot of teenagers in their underwear and a lot of really crazy people on Twitter. And that's why you have to hit the mute button. I probably have, 50,000 mutes. I leave it for them to do bot cleanup. I can't figure out the bots, although some of the Russian bots are pretty easy to spot and the Chinese bots. But I just mute. And I would like to see a system where I always knew, if you're not willing to put your name on something, I don't have an anonymous account ever, anywhere. And I'm always on the record, and I believe you ought to assume you're always on the record because, as Stu Spencer said long ago, anything said in a restaurant is intended to be overheard. And that's true about anything on the Amtrak, Acela. It's true about everything. There isn't any confidential conversation unless you're on a closed circuit or maybe even Signal or WhatsApp. Let me do a little bit of other news, though, because it's my job every morning to tell you what's going on out there. And it was a horrible day. Look, I own Amazon stock. Everyone knows. Horrible day for Amazon. Lost 20% of my Amazon value overnight, and that's fine. I don't sell my stock when it goes down. But it's just another brick in the face of the Democrats. Because this morning retirees are looking up at their retirement accounts, and they bought Amazon because it's the safest bet in the market, and they got hit again, just like Facebook fell apart. U.S. mortgage rates top 7%, highest in more than 20 years. That's the other Wall Street Journal story. Then we come to the political stories. Washington Post. Battle for Senate control marked by volatility as midterms near. And Politico. Young voters missing in action as Dem base flocks to vote early. These are two perfect examples of what do I write when the Democrats are getting slaughtered. When they're being mowed down. When their troops have broken and run away. When they can't get volunteers to turn out and the Act Blue website isn't generating $1. What do we write about when it's a rout? What do we write about when Don Bolduc takes it to Maggie Hassan in the debate yesterday? What do we write about when Mike DeWine in Ohio has a 22-point lead? When the insider advantage has the Republicans on a generic ballot uptick of +4? Because you got to understand, every single morning, I sent a note to a candidate this morning. Their team had canceled an interview today, and I said last night, that's fine, don't worry, but are you sure? And are you that confident? And the candidate texted me overnight. I was asleep twice, trying to call. I don't care if people don't want to come on. If they got a lead, you can send a lead. But I really don't care. But I sent a note back. My day ends early, and it starts early. So I get up around 4 a.m., and I start running through all this stuff. And this morning, it is hilarious because It's always the same thing. Collective hedging over by legacy media towards the, we're picking up a GOP trend storyline column analysis. Right now, it's a rout, right? The troops on the blue side, the Democrats have broken and they are running. And they are having trouble keeping volunteers and enthusiasm from cratering. So, same thing happened in 2014, 2010, and indeed back in 1994, but we didn't pick it up in 1994 because we didn't have technology. And when the first wave, 1994 is the first wave of many waves to smash into midterm American politics. But legacy media, reporters, pundits, analysts, they're all blue bubble based. And generally, they're lefties. Generally. I mean, there's an outlier here or there. I mean, I'm in the blue bubble. I live inside the Beltway. I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. But this vast mass of lefties in the media, 90 to 95%, they don't want to be embarrassed by pretending, oh, Baghdad bombing an election. And so about this time, 10 days out, the pollsters start tweaking their turnout model. But they don't ever catch up with data and mood because they are actually lefty activists or they're afraid of the noise from the lefty activists. But the red wave is building so big. Pay no attention to that tsunami outside the cruise ship. The country is well and truly screwed by inflation, by crime, the open border, fentanyl, the collapse of public education during COVID. Voters have lost 20 to 30% of their savings in the markets in the last 3 months. I've never seen such a solid wall of terrible news for a party holding the White House and Congress. Except perhaps 1994, Bill Clinton's first off year. Now the GOP gets thumped. That was W's word in 2006 as well. We get thumped occasionally. But then legacy media is pushing the thumping, and they're applauding, golf clapping the thumping, and they cheer it on. They hold back when the red wave is there. Oh, look over here. It's like, I'll come January, I'll be out in California for a couple of months, and I'll go down to Huntington Beach on Saturday morning, and I'll trundle along the waves. And I always watch the waves. It's the greatest run in America, the greatest place to be, the happiest place on earth. Huntington Beach on a Saturday morning. Volleyball, surfing, weightlifter. It's sort of Venice Beach as it used to be, but Huntington Beach now. Go down there and have a good time. If I ran along and looked at the Huntington Beach side, running north, looked to my right, I wouldn't see any wave. I would see cars. I would. So if there's this giant wave and I'm looking to the right, I want to talk about 1-6. I'm in the media, so I want to talk about the 1-6 hearing. And you don't see this wave. Is that malpractice? Did you really not see it? Because, boy, is it coming at him. Boy, is it coming at him. Today is the last day I'm going to ask you to contribute to Alliance Defending Freedom, the very last day, because it's time come Monday to do election nonstop. You've been very generous. It's my final day, and I would like you to hear Lathan Watts talk about, government overreach. He spent nearly 20 years working with Rick Perry, other conservative leaders to stop government overreach. Now Lathan is with ADF, and give a listen to what he has to say.
That's what led me to ADF. So I was sort of in that area, but, ADF, they work on all of the things that are the issues that are going to have a lasting impact beyond when I'm dead and gone. I've got 2 daughters. I'm concerned about the world that they're going to inherit. And ADF is the premier organization that's doing the work on all of these issues in our culture.
ADF is the most important shield we have on our religious liberty. You can call and contribute right now at 855-374-4123. Our Constitution is actually the greatest shield of our religious liberty, and a Supreme Court willing to defend the free exercise of your religious liberty and your free speech rights against a cancel culture that is everywhere growing, and a woke culture which wants to silence you and change what you believe and make illegal what you believe. But if you go to hughhewitt.com and wait for the banner to load, there's someone out there who's been sitting on a big donation. It's fully tax deductible, and you want to make a difference. Do it with ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom. I got a note yesterday. Alan Sears was coming to town, so I'm going to go see my old friend Alan, who began this so years ago. What a great work. He's done a great thing. He's saved the First Amendment, and Alliance Defending Freedom has got hundreds of lawyers working for free with tens of thousands of requests for help. and they need your help to stay in the field, and we need them to bring the cases. So go to HughHewitt.com, and please be generous at the top. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show. By the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. Good morning, Governor. Welcome back to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Good morning, Hugh. Great to be with you. I hope you got your tax refund check, just like all Virginians. And for your listeners that don't live in Virginia, you can move here now.
And they should move here now because it's wonderfully easy and it's great to get a refund. Governor, I voted early this week. It's pretty miserable for people enjoying great races across the country. I had one congressional district, and there's nothing else because Virginia votes in the off year. There are no volunteers, there are no signs, there's no buttons, there's nothing. But I know what you're doing this weekend or next week. You're rallying with Hung Cow. I mean, 4 times? You must be really as excited as I am about Captain Cow.
Yeah, I am. He is a great candidate. And listen, it's just what the 10th congressional district needs. That's a ton of Loudoun County. Listen, Loudoun County's been ground zero since the beginning of all of this for parents' rights. Parents matter. Let's get serious. Residents in the 10th are frustrated with what's happening in their schools. They're frustrated with what's happening in their pocketbooks, and crime's on the rise. And so they're going to go to the polls and they're going to elect Hung Cow. He is a great candidate. He's a Vietnamese refugee. They came to America. He went to the Thomas Jefferson School of Math and Science when it was a meritocracy. And by the way, it's a meritocracy again now.
Great.
And he went to the Naval Academy, served our nation, and now he wants to represent Loudoun County in the 10th District in Congress.
He is a perfect candidate. And I wanted to ask you about not just him. Obviously, a Virginia governor campaigning for a great Virginia candidate makes sense. But you've been everywhere, man. If I had the Johnny Cash song ready, I could play it for you. The fact is, you've been everywhere. And I wanted your assessment of what you've seen and felt about the issue set that Americans are voting on in 10 days. We're voting on right now like I did this week early.
Yeah, well, Hugh, let me just start in Virginia because I have 20 stops running into Election Day in Virginia to help candidates win. And the red wave that found it just failing with inflation being let loose and the silent thief stealing hard-earned money from hard-earned Americans, and crime, Hugh, has just been a runaway train that the liberal Democrats let loose and cannot control. This is what voters across America are focused on. They're the same issues as last year in Virginia, and there's a big red wave flowing across the country. We're going to see a lot of seats flip, and particularly governor seats, where everybody recognizes that Republican governors have so outperformed Democrat governors. I think every state deserves a Republican governor.
You and Doug Ducey have led the way on education reform, and I want to bore down on this for a moment. I think it is the iceberg issue. I wrote this in the Washington Post last week. It's the iceberg issue, those test scores, not just the ACT scores, but the math scores. Just a shock to parents who did not know, and a confirmation for parents who did, that the collapse in education over the last 2 years, driven primarily by public teachers unions, and let's just take the Band-Aid off, that's who made it the shutdown last, has led to a realignment. Am I making that up, Governor, or have you seen the same thing?
100% correct, Hugh. And unfortunately, so much of it started even before we heard the words COVID-19. In Virginia, we watched previous administrations dismantle expectations of excellence, dismantle accountability, and start changing curriculum, lowering expectations. I mean, Virginia went from having the highest expectations to the lowest expectations for our kids. And guess what? When you don't expect anything, you don't get anything. And this collaboration and these kind of these agents of chaos in our school system have translated into students failing. And in Virginia, we had the largest decline in 4th grade reading in the nation. And we were tied with Maryland for the largest decline in 4th grade math in the nation in the most recent NAEP scores, the National Report Card. Parents are apoplectic about this, and they should be. And this is a moment to reset education across the nation. We have started this process in Virginia. We re-empowered parents to make decisions for their children. We put them not back at the table, but at the head of the table. We're working on curriculum, and this is why voters are going to the polls, and they're going to fire management, and they're going to put in an entire new leadership team, not just in the states, but I believe in the Senate and the House.
Every state house can have an education reformer at its top, and that means doing things from not only cheerleading excellence, which Governor Youngkin has been doing, but you've replaced regents at universities. And I mean, from top to bottom, we need to see change in attitude and leadership, Governor Youngkin. Is that also playing out in the other states that you visited?
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, people recognize that not just K through 12, but higher ed has been a real challenge. I meet with our heads of all of our public universities every quarter. There is a strong commitment to defend freedom of speech on campus, not just around campus, but in the classroom, and to embrace the fact that we need intellectual diversity on campus where students don't feel prosecuted and persecuted for expressing a view that has conservative values in it. And so this is running across the nation, everywhere we go. I was just in Wisconsin this week, and with the Wisconsin polls are really showing a surge. I'll have a chance to be in New York next week, and it's just exciting to see Americans come together, locking arms around these values that aren't Republicans versus Democrats. These are American values, just like Virginians did last year, and making a big statement and a change.
So when you go to Wisconsin or when you show up with Lee Zeldin in New York, do you talk primarily about education? Because I think it is driving so many parents to do things they have never done before, whether it's go to a school board meeting or organize a voter caucus or demand accountability for ideology in the classroom.
You bet. Everywhere we go. Hugh, it's amazing. I was in Oregon. And by the way, Oregon's going to elect a Republican governor. And there were moms standing there with homemade shirts that said Parents Matter. This is a movement that started at ground zero in Loudoun County, spread across the Commonwealth, has spread across the nation. And it is absolutely top of the ticket. It brings people together around their children. And again, it's not Republicans versus Democrats. There was a woman in a rally that I was just in Wisconsin, and she looked at us. She said, "I'm a Democrat. I am a lifelong Democrat, and I'm going to vote for Tim Michels to be our governor because he's going to stand up for our kids." This is just a big, big moment where America recognizes that the party of education is the Republican Party, and the party of education is driven by values that first support parents, that understand excellence, that understand that we have to lift the ceiling and the floor, that we've got to remove power from teachers' unions and give it back to parents. We have to celebrate teachers who do the work, but teachers' unions need to find something else to spend their time on besides shutting down our schools and making sure that our kids can't even pass fourth grade math.
Governor Youngkin, last question. We have entered the days of the hedge edge. That's where legacy media hedges its bet and begins to edge towards reality to say, wow, there's a red wave out there. You've been a longtime student of media as both a businessman and now as a governor. Have you noticed they've begun to they got to get trued up with the real data that's out there and stop polling for the blue team?
Hugh, it's amazing to watch. We lived it last year. You were with me from the very beginning all year. But of course, up until the last couple of weeks, Republican candidate couldn't win in Virginia.
Yep.
And lo and behold, in the last couple of weeks, everybody said, well, I've supported you forever. Same thing is happening now across the nation. And we're also seeing it in funding. The big Democrat funders are all stepping back now and recognizing that this red wave, and as I said earlier, that found its headwaters last year in the Commonwealth, is washing across the nation. And this is going to be a huge statement in the direction of our country, and it is going to be amazing to watch.
Glenn Youngkin, thank you, Governor. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Still waiting for my appointment as Warden of the Potomac Ports to come through. I'm waiting on the paperwork, but it'll eventually happen. And you stay out there on the campaign trail. Say hello to Lee Zeldin for us next week, Governor.
Will do, Hugh, and thanks again. And again, everybody who doesn't live in Virginia, please come. Things are rocking and rolling here. Our economy is really doing well. Businesses are coming. Jobs are up. And we're doing a great job working for Virginians. So thanks a ton, Hugh.
Thank you, Governor. It's like Rick Perry. He used to put on the Velcro and come to California and steal all the businesses. Look, it's a great place to live. It's a great place to live. I always tell people, I have 3 children and 5 grandchildren. My 3 kids grew up going to public schools in California. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I moved back after the Reagan administration. We stayed there for, 28 years. And now, by completely different courses, all 3 of them ended up in the Commonwealth. Different places, doing different things. But they love Glenn Youngkin, and they love Virginia. And we didn't come back because of the grandkids. That's a dumb move. We came back because of the job. But you know what? Virginia is a wonderful place to live if Glenn Youngkin is running it. Stay tuned, America. I'll be right back on the Friday edition of the Hugh Hewitt Show. America, this is Jim Banks' theme song Jim Banks, member of Congress from Indiana, who is the leader of the Republican Study Committee, the largest caucus in the conservative House. Jim Banks joins me now. Good morning, Congressman. Welcome back. You have been everywhere.
It feels like it, Hugh. I'm back home in Columbia City, Indiana today, but I head to Florida with our friend Morgan Ortegas tomorrow to campaign for Laurel Lee and Anna Paulina Luna down in the Tampa area. And then I'm all over the Midwest, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Pennsylvania. We have so many of the seats that we're going to win that are going to give us the majority that come from Middle America, from the Midwest, and I'm going to do my part in the closing days to help candidates here close to home.
Jim Banks, the ground is moving underneath our feet, and it's moving towards the Republican column. There is a red wave. It is building. I don't even know how they blow this at this point. Nevertheless, you got to run through the tape. What is the issue set that you have heard in the congressional races, of which there are scores, in which you have campaigned?
Every poll in America says the same thing, Hugh. It's the border, it's crime, it's inflation, it's gas prices, true kitchen table issues. Many issues that evolve from there, like the drug epidemic and fentanyl flowing over the border as a direct result of the Biden border policies. So with those four issue areas, it's consistent in every single poll in every single district in America. Those are the top four issues that matter most to independent voters and Republicans. And that's the difference. If you look at what matters to Democrats, it's altogether a whole subset of other issues that don't matter to most Americans. And that's why the red wave has built itself up to where it is today. I didn't realize how big of a red wave it was until I saw the hot mic Chuck Schumer moment with Joe Biden yesterday talking about losing Georgia. And even Chuck Schumer is telling Joe Biden in a private moment on a hot mic that Herschel Walker is going to win in Georgia. That's how good of election night this is going to be. But we have to close the deal. We got to go out and win as many of these seats as we can. Kevin McCarthy, our leader, talks about this being that type of election where we have to run the numbers up as high as we can, because we might not have another chance like this in decades in the future to build up a strong governing majority to save this country.
You know, you won't remember this, but more than a year ago, you asked me to come to Republican Study Committee dinner, and the most important conversation I had was with Mrs. Banks, and we talked about your kids and education. And I just got the sense there that moms of children are just absolutely desperate to change up everything because the schools collapse. Do you hear that again and again and again?
You do. You're right. You hear it from moms all over America, and rural districts and suburban districts all over the country. You hear moms who are desperate to never go through what we went through during the pandemic, and to take back our schools and put our kids first in our kids' education. You heard it from my wife a year ago, worn out from the pandemic, and she's not unlike moms everywhere that I go. So that's absolutely the case. Republicans are campaigning on passing a Parents' Bill of Rights. It's a significant piece of legislation, a statement of where Republicans stand on putting parents first and putting our kids first in their education. And that I expect that'll be one of the very first things that we do when we get the gavels. We roll up our sleeves and pass bills like that.
Because the spending clause allows the Congress to attach conditions to the money they receive, and you can banish CRT and ideology from elementary school. I mean, you can do that. The question is, Jim Banks, you're in leadership. Will the Republicans deliver, or will they mill around celebrating?
Well, I have no doubt that all of my Republican colleagues, whether on the right or those who come from the middle, we all understand that we're inheriting a historic mess, and that's sobering for all of us, Hugh. There will be no time to celebrate. We will meet 1 week after Election Day and choose our leadership. Kevin McCarthy is the speaker. Others, I'm in conversations in the mix for leadership positions, because I want to be one of the Republicans at the table, is making sure that we do what we said we were going to do. And right away, right after those leadership elections, then we'll populate the committees, choose our committee chairmen and chairwomen, and then we'll hit the ground running on January 2nd, January 3rd when we do the swearing in. So there will be no time to celebrate. it will be getting to work right away to pass these bills. And we know we have the agenda, the Commitment to America, which is a framework of all of the issues that matter, Hugh. But then there are you're right, the spending fights, the debt limit, the defense bill. We have a farm bill in the next Congress. Those are the must-pass legislation, but those are also opportunities of leverage to advance causes in vehicles that will go to the president's desk, that he will be pressured to sign into law that will give us a chance to do some of the things that we're talking about.
This is why I support Jim Banks becoming the whip of the GOP, because he's a logistician. He understands how to deliver. And we really need to deliver, and we need to communicate, and we being Republicans need to communicate that while they're not the president and they can't overcome a veto, they can make change. Jim Banks, thank you. Good luck in the final 10 days.